Liberty Nation. Truth is making a comeback.
Hello and welcome to Liberty Nation's LNTV. I'm your host, Mark Angelides, and I'm joined once again by the incomparable Mr. Jeff Charles. Now, it's been in the papers, some of them. It's been on the news stations, slightly less of them. But President Donald J. Trump appears to be winning hugely in the approval ratings. So we're going to discuss this and more. Welcome, Jeff. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Grand. All right. Now, the first question is, what's happening with President Trump's approval numbers right now?
The president's approval rating is gradually climbing up. It's been on an upward trajectory for a while now. And this is interesting, given the fact that 90% of the media's coverage of him is negative. It doesn't seem like the left's strategy is working here.
Okay. I mean, am I right in thinking that this is due in part to an increase in minority voters actually supporting Donald Trump? Is that about right?
I think so. I think that's a significant contributor, especially when you take into account the fact that in the Black community, as far as the Black community, his approval ratings among Black Americans is at 29% right now. About this time last year, it was at 15%. So it's doubled within the period of 12 months. And when it comes to Hispanic Americans, their approval rating of the president has jumped 10 points. So I think both of these factors have significantly contributed to his increasing poll numbers.
Okay, just a quick aside, but don't you just hate the term minority voters? I can't stand that term. I can't stand it. It's it almost makes it seem like this vote doesn't mean as much. It's a minority vote. It's not the major vote. I hate it.
Well, to the Democrats, those are major votes. So they're probably pretty worried right now. I mean, because these are part of their victimhood class. So they need to protect these votes because, especially with the Black vote, if they lose 10% of it, they don't win another election.
Yeah. I mean, what's behind all this? We're going to call it the hashtag Walkaway because obviously minority groups, Blacks and Hispanics, have notoriously voted Democrat, but they appear to be just literally walking away now. Why is this? What's the deal?
Yeah, I think there's a few different factors that contribute to it. I think it's the slow moving exodus. I wouldn't say that they're leaving the Democratic Party in droves, but it is happening. It's a mixture of things. I mean, and this also applies to members of the LGBTQ plus community. What's happening is that they're seeing the ugliness on the left. They're seeing the vitriol and the irrational hatred of conservatives and the president. But beyond that, I think that they're finally realizing that the Democrats don't have their best interests at heart. So to give you an example, just this past week, tons of Black Chicago residents took to the streets in a massive protest against Mayor Rahm Emanuel, who is a Democrat. Their whole leadership is Democrat. And they're calling for his resignation. And some of them have even said that they should take up Trump's offer to send in the National Guard. So the fact that they're even willing to move more towards Trump, especially with the media constantly painting him as a racist, it says something about how badly the Democratic Party is doing and how much they're starting to lose their hold.
Okay. As you say, they're not necessarily going in droves to the other side. But do you think we're going to see a lot more of a swing towards independence? People maybe waiting to see we'll see what this guy's policies are, we'll see what this gal's policies are, and then making up their minds as opposed to getting involved in the primary stage. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point because a lot of these people are either going independent and some of them are going to the Republican side. But even the ones that are going independent are going to be a little bit more open-minded, especially if they start seeing what Trump's policies are doing for them. And they continue to see how the Democratic policies are harming their communities. They'll be more open to voting Republican, even if they remain independent. So this is pretty significant. And I think that the Democratic Party may be underestimating this quite a bit, but it's easy to do since it's not happening all at once. It's a gradual shift. So by the time it actually happens, I think the Democratic Party will be a little bit surprised.
Yeah, we have in the UK we have what's called tribal voting, which essentially means somebody who's born in one area. Well, my dad voted Labour, my granddad voted Labour, my granddad before him voted Labour, and it's the same for the Tory party. Oh, my father voted Tory, my grandfather voted Tory, X Y Z. And so they just kind of vote in these patterns. We call it tribal voting, and it doesn't seem to matter to them whether these policies impact them in a positive way or a negative way. They just vote for the party. I'm sure you have a similar thing. We say you could put a red rosette on a donkey and it would get elected. I'm sure you have something similar in America.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same idea. I mean, people have families that have voted Democratic or Republican, and just by default, that's how they will vote. And that has a pretty strong influence. So that makes it even more interesting that so many minorities are willing to lead the Democratic Party, because it's not just the fact that their families have always voted Democrat. You can become ostracized if you even dare to say a positive word about Trump and you're a Black American, or if you're Hispanic or a member of the LGBTQ community. So there is a lot of pressure. So when they move from Democrat to independent or from Democrat to Republican, they're taking a huge step. And so again, it just kind of shows how bad the Democrats' policies are, because if people are willing to go through that, then that means that they finally become fed up.
Yeah, it actually makes me think that perhaps the approval ratings are actually lower. Sorry, the approval ratings are actually higher for Donald Trump than the polls suggest. Because
yeah, I thought
I mean, if my whole community is going to turn against me if I say, you know what, I like this guy, and they go, no. You're less likely to do it, even to pollsters. It's almost the love that dare not speak its name. And so I think there's a lot of shy Trumpers out there. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I think so. I've thought about this a lot, and there's no way to know how many of these people there are, but I think there are a lot of undercover Trump supporters. I was just listening to Scott Adams' podcast yesterday, and he went to meet the president, and the taxi driver he was speaking with was from Africa. And so Scott Adams, who's the creator of Dilbert and an author, he asked him, so what do you think of Trump? And he describes how this guy got really quiet, even though there was nobody around in the car, and said, a lot of people in here around in DC hate him, but I kind of like him. So I think he said he just won't say it out loud. So I think that there's even a lot of that as well. Kanye West even said that. He said there's a lot of other rappers that agree with me, but they're too afraid to speak up.
Well, Scott Adams has just outed that DC taxi driver. That'll be on the nightly news. One more point I wanted to cover was we talked briefly about how people are moving, not necessarily towards one or the other, but into an independent position where they're willing to examine what's on offer from both parties, or even a third party, if Bernie decides to throw his hat in the ring come 2020. Do you see this? I see this as a hugely positive thing. I don't think the party system is necessarily looking after the best interest of each voter. That's just my opinion. I come from a system where I guess it's probably quite similar to yours, where it really doesn't matter who you vote for, the government still gets in, and it's really just a back and forth between two sides that really aren't that different. But for me, I think when people are independent, then each side and the other has to actually put something on offer. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's true, and honestly, I think that's another reason why Trump was elected. I mean, he has the R next to his name, but realistically, Trump has not been a lifelong Republican. He's more conservative than many thought he would be, but I think he is the best example of an outsider coming in. So for all intents and purposes, even though he has Republican next to his name, he is more of an independent. And I think that we're starting to see that happen. There's a big movement even in the conservative movement where they want to elect Republicans who are actually conservatives and not necessarily establishment or rhinos or any of the sort. So I think that there is more of an openness to that. And it actually represents an opportunity for conservatives. Even the people that are going from Democrat to independent, those are people who can be convinced.
Okay. Well, Jeff, thank you. I really appreciate your insight on this. Thank you for joining us on LMTV.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And most of all, thank you to you at home for watching and taking part. You can stay on top of everything that's happening with the Liberty Nation app. It's our new and improved app, and it gives you access to all of our articles, the podcasts, the TV shows, the radio, wherever and whenever. It's a simple download from the Play Store or the App Store, and it's all you need to keep you in the know wherever you go. Until next time, take care, stay safe.
Visit us at libertynation.com.